Okay, so our next speaker is Carolina Cruz-Neira, and she's going to be speaking about Beyond Fun and Games, VR as a Tool of the Trade. Carolina is a pioneer in the areas of virtual reality and interactive visualization, having created and deployed a variety of technologies that have become standard tools in industry, government, and academia. She is well known worldwide for being the creator of the Cave virtual reality system and her PhD work and for VR Juggler.
All right, I'm ready to go. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm actually going to take a little bit of flexibility here because my talk was actually a guest talk. So as a guest speaker, I have a little bit more freedom to talk more in general. And I also thought because it was the last talk of the day, it would be a nice way to hopefully bring together all the exciting things that we have heard throughout the year. So I'm going to start my talk with a very simple statement. As I've been going around talking in the last couple of years, we are starting to sort of lean in the direction that when we talk about virtual reality, we immediately think head-mounted displays. In a lot of cases, that's the case, that's the situation. So when I give all my talks, this is always my first slide these days, okay? There's a lot more to virtual reality than just head-mounted displays. To me, virtual reality is whatever kind of technology that puts you there, and there can be pretty much anything. Can be the coolest game in the planet, but also could be the inside of a human body, can be an engineering design, or can be a travel through time to understand history events. So with that in mind, I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes taking us back in history. So this slide, I put it here for you because this is how we were over 20 years ago. If you look at this picture, just remember this picture a little bit later because a lot of this sounds very familiar from what we have today. Oops. Oh, my placer doesn't job, but we have Jaron Lanier with the VPL iPhone. We had the virtuality guys, a bunch of other exciting things. And that was 20 years ago. And it seems sometimes that there's no memory in our community that we've been doing this for a long time. However, for me, I came into this world at that time in 1991. And my first experience, like probably most people today, first experience in virtual reality was with a head-mounted display. I was a very young graduate student at the time. I'm like everybody else. The moment I put it on, what did I do? Whoa! Which you still hear a lot of people that try an Oculus Rift for first time, Vive, Gear VR, whatever. It's all like, whoa, this is super cool. You know, but then, after I did that, because of course I was a PhD student on the hunting for a PhD thesis, I had to take a step back. And I started reflecting on what is exactly this thing doing for me. So the first thing that it did for me, I have to say as a disclaimer, I'm originally from Spain, so I'm very social. I like to be with my friends. I like to be with my people. I like to be with my 300 cousins and all that kind of thing. So when I go into virtual reality, the first thing that happens is I lost my friends. I lost my own body. I lost my environment. And I'm totally somewhere else that I don't have my usual frame of reference, which is, for example, my peripheral vision, where I see my hands, where I see my banks, where maybe I see the tip of my shoes. So to me, that was very annoying, again, after I went through the wow stages. Of course, perhaps because I'm a girl, you know, this whole thing in my head was just too much stuff on me. I had things on my head, I have cables, I had things that kind of sucked into my face, created wrinkles, which I don't want wrinkles, you know, all that kind of thing. So it was really cumbersome. As much as I tried really hard, and again, I'm talking 1991, I cannot imagine a group of people sitting together with multiple head-mounted displays on to share experience. And again, yeah, we're doing collaborative VR and all that kind of thing, of course. I still don't see that. here is my typical scenario. Mom, dad, the kids, and grandma just finished dinner, and now we're gonna watch the movie after dinner. I just don't see that a scenario with 5 HMDs in the living room, and maybe I'm just sort of the weirdo of the virtual environments community. I just don't see that happening. I see scenarios where this technology, of course, is really helpful and very good, but there are some other scenarios that I think we're trying to force into the technology versus force the scenario drive the technology. And then another thing that I noticed in 1991, which to me is still very familiar to what we do today, is really a lot of emphasis and focus on the entertainment value of this technology. And there is not much information to the public. Again, in community like ours, of course, we know, but to the public, that this is way, way, way bigger than gaming and 3D movies. So, and then since I come from the background of computer engineering, of course, we had the fact that we don't have, again, talking 1991, a very common infrastructure to develop applications. If you look at this, a lot of these points are still valid today. I mean, we have things like the Unity game engine that a lot of people are using through tools like Middle of VR and TechViz and some other things. But still, it's very difficult sometimes to move from platform to platform your applications. You cannot run something that runs in this particular application easily ported to a different technology. So, we have the issue of simplicity as well. How simple is simple and how complex is complex. Nowadays, things are a lot simpler. We have devices that you get your smartphone, you slap it in the device, and you have a fairly amazing virtual reality device. Of course, we didn't have that back in the 90s. So from all this in the 90s, this was what drove me to accept the offer from the Electronic Visualization Lab to do my PhD in virtual reality. And then, basically say, I really need to figure out something to do that goes beyond this observation. So I guess as part of my PhD research, we developed the other VR, that other thing out there, which basically was, well, let's build a physical space that is big enough that we can all bring ourselves into the virtual space and bring our friends with us into the virtual space, but still be there, that mysterious there that we want to be. So that was the origin of the cave. I put you some historical pictures in here, back in 1992 when the cave was shown for first time at SIGGRAPH. You can see people waited in line 4, 5, 6 hours. Dan Sandin is here in the audience. He remembers that as well. There was a lot of people because it really opened a lot of possibilities. So between all the wealth of research that was being done with head-mounted displays and the sort of sidetrack of something like the cave, we lived a moment in time that was as exciting as it is today. I would say that time frame between 1994, 1995 until about 2001, 2002 is what I call the booming years, and we're in the second phase of those booming years. There was a lot of work that was being done, a lot of exciting applications. A lot of engineering companies went to do virtual reality. We saw entertainment. We saw historical things. We saw scientific work. And then suddenly, I have a little digression here, because I was putting this because a lot of people have been asking me this throughout the day, that caves today are still unusable because they are $1 million. That's just a little bit of a myth. With today's technology, we can build caves at a very, very inexpensive level. We have built a number of caves under $40,000, $50,000. I'm currently developing one that by the time it's finished, it will probably be under $15,000. Again, is it the top of the line? No. But if we are willing to make compromises in head-mounted display technology like we are doing with the consumer technology that we see today, we should be prepared to do the same kind of compromises in these other technologies. Of course, hey, you can buy a $2 million head-mounted display. You want a military grade, but you can buy a $300 or $400 HMD if you compromise. Same situation with the cave. So this is my little digression in there. So for those of you that were asking me this morning about that. So going back to the time frames, we went through a period that I would say about 10 years, which I call also the forgotten years of virtual reality, where the media just forgot all about us. I'm not sure what happened. I think part of what happened is that a lot of industries started to absorb the technology as part of their workflow, as part of their routine work, so it was not exciting anymore. And of course, it was not primarily in entertainment. It was in other aspects of human life, like engineering design, military training, mining operations, and some other things. I even did baby diapers design for Procter & Gamble, fluid dynamics on baby pee and things like that in the cave. So that's my joke. But for some reason, the press did not pick up on this. So we went through these kind of dark ages of virtual reality. And then suddenly, around 2012, hey, we're back on the map, because all of us know what happened with Oculus Rift, you know. Ended up being as a relatively modest project of an individual. It went into Kickstarter. The initial asking was about $200,000, got over $2 million, got a lot of attention, got the connection with Facebook, and here we are all today. So this is where we are today. When you talk about virtual reality, when the press tells you what virtual reality is about, this is what we get. Now, this picture is all photographs from 2014 and 2015, and the little guy on the corner is my son, and that was just a few days ago. So this is very recent pictures. Now, let me back up to the one from the 80s. I see an issue here, guys. Do you guys see the issue? We are stuck where we were 20 years ago. And I don't mean to be negative. I just want people to realize where we are. Yes, we of course know a lot more of what we need to do to make it work. But if you look at what the media was promoting 20 years ago and what the media is promoting today, it's the same. What's the difference? Cheaper? Of course it's cheaper. More commodity hardware? Yes, okay.
Looks like there are more women in them.
There used to be more women in the past, that's true. So to me, you know, I just, like I said, since it's the end of the day, I just want to give you some food for thought for the rest of for tomorrow, since tomorrow will be the main day for the engineering of virtual reality, you know, because I think we're going on the same path that we were going 20 years ago, and that, I don't want that to happen. I really don't, because this is a very exciting technology. There's a lot of great things that we can do with it. A lot of the speakers today have presented amazing new technologies that are coming up. So we need to keep ourselves a little bit in focus on what exactly are we doing 20 years later. So my personal approach, Carolina approach, I'm like your financial advisor and your virtual reality advisor. Diversify. We're at a point in history where we can be extremely diverse in virtual reality. So all these pictures are from my new center at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. So we have a humongous cave, 26 projectors, more pixels that your eye can see, all that kind of cool stuff, a gazillion nodes cluster, la, 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 la. But we are going, for example, spherical screens as well. We are doing omnidirectional 360-degree spherical stereo, utilizing ray tracing, so we compute the stereo at the pixel level. We are doing semi-immersive devices. We have a couple of virtual tables that are just with enough 3D and stereo to perform the task at hand on those tables. Touchable displays, of course, Oculus, Vives, Gear VRs, and all that. And we're also experimenting with 3D mobile devices, which they are coming. The picture doesn't show, but again, my little son is my model. So that little tablet that he's using there for augmented realities are actually an auto-stereoscopic tablet to do that. So I think our approach to this should be this diversification on the platforms. That brings a lot of challenges, of course, because developing for these platforms to have your applications to be able to, I guess, using a term borrowed from the military industry, doing interoperability between all our displays and settings is actually a really, really hard problem, both from the software engineering aspects as well as the hardware, because there is a lot of performance-related parameters that take into play, and a lot of optics and some other issues. So, but with this diversification, what has been really cool is that it has allowed us to do a number of interesting applications throughout the years. I have a few applications here, and I'm going to let Chris wave at me when I run out of time. So I'll tell you some that are not entertainment, because again, my goal today was to get us to think a little bit beyond entertainment, but they're all very practical applications. The first one is very dear to me because I started doing this work when I was a graduate student, and I finished it up when I was an assistant professor at Iowa State University, where we were actually starting to use virtual reality as a front end to supercomputing simulations. So we were using on those days I was using, for those of you that are my age or older, we were using a connection machine, if you remember the famous connection machines. So I had, I remember it was about 1,000 processor connection machine, solving the molecular dynamics on the fly, connected directly with a fiber optic link to the cave. So as the scientists were in the middle of the cave, they were able to do drug design interactively, with the goal of not necessarily find a specific drug for a particular disease, but the goal of this application was to try to reduce the amount of experimental lab testing that the molecular biologists had to do. They had some intuition of some molecular structures that might or might not work, and they were using the cave to try to reduce that spectrum to then minimize the laboratory work. Down the line, we started our evangelical mission to tell engineering companies that this was a technology that will help them tremendously. So my first sort of experience was with John Deere, which is a company everybody knows. We, at least myself personally, worked with them over 12 years. So they were having a design problem they couldn't really figure out through traditional tools. So we use an immersive environment with, of course, 3D stereo and head tracking. And without getting into too much details, we helped them to find the problem that they've been really wrestling for months, trying to figure out where the problem was. Some other applications, for example, we are working since a number of years now on using virtual reality as a certification tool in different disciplines that are very expensive to certify, like in this case, fire marshal certification for some complicated construction projects are very expensive, where depending on what it is that is being built, sometimes they had to build a mock-up, and by a mock-up I mean a real, almost half-a-scale something, and then actually burn it and see what happens when there is a fire. So of course, this is a very expensive way to test that. So we've been doing a lot of different virtual reality simulations to help in this kind of testing and certification. I have a couple of quick videos that I wanted to show, or something a little bit more recent, since I'm out of time here. So let me just show this video real quick. So this is just something recent that we've been doing. This actually, we sent it out for SIGGRAPH. The deadline was yesterday. For the VR Village exhibit. So this is our little 3D table. Has a narration, but I'm not gonna go through that. So let me skip a little bit where you can see it. So here you have our environment. Again, it's a lot simpler to use. Right now we have a smart track just because we recycle it from the lab. So it gives us the right level of immersion, the right level of stereoscopic to do this particular task at hand, which is interactive dissection of a virtual cadaver. So this particular project is in the process of being commercialized and transferred to different medical schools. Because at this particular level, that's what they need. They need to have their master physician that is teaching anatomy with the students in the surrounding, kind of nearby, looking at it the same way they would be looking at a cadaver, but at the same time, they need to be able to see each other so they can have some conversations and some saying, look at this, look at that, look at that. So there are a lot of interesting things out there that are beyond, again, gaming and entertainment that I think our technology can significantly help. And I'm gonna skip real quick. You give me 30 seconds, Basically, I try to condense my 20-something years of experience in like 15 minutes. But some of the things that I learned over the years, certainly hype hurts a lot. I know we get very excited about what we're doing. I know we like people around us to get very excited about what we're doing. But we have to be a little bit careful to say, hey, this is all the things that we can do, when in reality, we're not even quite there yet. We have to be very, very careful with that. Another thing is one size doesn't fit all, and that applies really, really well for VR. There's a lot of flavors, there's a lot of varieties for virtual reality, so let's don't just get hung up on one particular kind of virtual reality. Let's just keep in mind it's just technology. A few years from now, there will be some other things, but the concept is really how do we get to this there, that there is generated in the computer. Another thing, too, of course, is that in many contexts, sometimes being able to have a group of people face-to-face sharing the virtual space is what you need. And again, we can do collaborative virtual environments with representing your own body through avatars and all that. It's not the same. The face-to-face, the body language, the smiles, the little twitch on your face and all that is still very, very important in certain contexts for communications. I cannot say anymore. It's a lot more than a really cool gaming and entertainment platform. But at the same time, when we get outside gaming, I see lots and lots of people doing work that all it is just flying through pretty models. There's a lot more, again, to gaming, but it's also a lot more than just flying through pretty models where really nothing really happens. And then, of course, the infrastructure to do these things is still not quite at the level that it should be, so we can really unleash our own creativity. So that goes to all the people developing SDKs and that kind of thing. And we have very little interoperability between different platforms. I can guarantee you right now what I run in my devices, it's going to be really, really hard for you to run it in your own devices. And what you run on your device, it's going to be really hard for me to run it in my device because we don't have a lot of common infrastructure to do that. So with that, this is what I think is going to be hopefully the next 15 years, 10 years or so. Again, remember your financial VR advisor, diversify. All right, so with that, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much.